morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Neighborish livecast. I'm Super Dave, aka Mr. Incredible, and with me today, my co-hosts aren't joining me today, so I'm blessed and honored to have in their stead my good friend, NBA expert extraordinaire. She told me not to say that, but Miss Joelle Laguerre. And it's going to be a really great show today because I have a gentleman here who's a friend of mine. I've known him probably most of his life, a large part of mine. Um, yeah, he's a 2005 graduate of Howard University. His time at HBCU inspired his 2015 novel Paths, an in-depth look into the lives of a group of students as they navigate through classes, school organizations, and social activities while working to cultivate and maintain interpersonal relationships. Um, he's also taught history in Maryland public school system and currently is back at Howard working on a degree in filmmaking. My boy, Robye Anderson is with me. What's up, brother? It's so
Hey,
good to
what's
have you
going
with me.
on, Joel and Dave? How are you two?
Good, man.
Great.
Good.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I'm
So, yeah,
happy to be
man.
here. Thank you for inviting me.
Definitely, definitely, man. Yeah, so I'm excited to talk to you about all the cool stuff that you're doing, that you have done and are doing. But, first, there's a couple of things going on in the city, in the country, in the world that we should talk about. And we're going to talk about it right now. So,
Gotcha.
as you guys know, and we typically started our show talking about the coronavirus just because it's such a huge thing on, everybody's hearts and minds right now. It's so prevalent. And a new aspect of it has come about through news stories and social media posts, and that's the vaccines and the fear of the vaccine that's prevalent in our community. And in an interview that I saw floating around social media over the past few days that actually resurfaced because it was originally from an interview from July with NIH infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci. He talked about the validity of the apprehension among the Black community um, with the institution of American medicine. He cited things like the Tuskegee experiment and even something that I didn't realize was as prevalent as it is until they talked about it in this interview. The disparity between black people and white people and how they're prescribed pain medicine. And when I was reading about it, it took me back to a situation that I had where a couple of years back, my mom had broke her shoulder. She had a fall and she broke her shoulder. And as part of her, health regimen, she was prescribed some, I think it was like oxycodone or something like that. One of those heavy, one of the serious, the ones that put you out. But
They make rap songs about that
right,
one.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So the oxy, yeah. But I went to pick it up for her, and I remember she went to the doctor that day. Of course, they checked her out and everything, and they prescribed the medicine. So by the time she got home, it was kind of late in the evening, and I went to pick up actually to put in the prescription for her, and I went to a couple of different pharmacies, and they were looking at the prescription and looking at me, and they're like, oh, we don't have that. And it took a while for me to realize that as I was going from pharmacy to pharmacy, that each pharmacy was calling the next pharmacy and saying, hey, it's a Black guy trying to get this stuff, like to the point where I would get into one and they'd be like, all right, I gotta go. All right, yeah, yeah. So hey, you looking for the? No, we don't have that. I'm sorry. And so that, excuse me, kind of brought that to life for me when I was reading the article and they were talking about the disparity and how we're prescribed medicine and how black people suffering from things like sickle cell and different ailments that are extremely painful aren't able to get access to these medicines just because of a stereotype that keeps them from being prescribed, or doctors try to find ways around prescribing and things of that nature. I had no idea this was such a prevalent thing, but it's just so interesting to me that this is one of those examples of systemic racism that has proliferated throughout the years. It's been like from as far back as something like the Tuskegee experiment to present day, and it's showing itself in this vaccine and the mistrust that we have. Um, I know this is kind of a deep topic to start out on, but I mean, if you guys have any opinions on it, I'm gonna go ladies first and start with Joelle and see if you have any opinions on it. And I can tell by the face you made that you're ready and anxious to know.
I am not.
But I mean, go ahead.
I mean, it's a very complex subject, as you mentioned, and I think all of the concerns that you brought up. I don't know what you were reading from, but I know that Charles Blow, the journalist, the brother, he wrote an interesting article that I haven't read all of about, the fears, the valid fears that, the Black community has about the medical establishment, so to speak. Right. But, it's a complex issue because we have a very real virus out there, and we know that vaccines have been our saviors, for lack of a better word, over the years, when you think of polio and some of those other viruses and diseases that have been so devastating in our history. Vaccines are what brought us back, so that we have to recognize that. But at the same time, I think the concern is mostly that, like, let's see. We recognize that this vaccine was developed very quickly. I don't think any of us, I know I don't know or understand the science. I don't know if it should have taken longer or if it, we really don't know. And I think so most of us are just speaking from, a sense of concern and fear, but that's not really rooted in any science. And, that's not nothing, against us. I'm not a scientist, so I shouldn't be expected to understand. But I think we just kind of want to see, it feels like we're guinea pigs a little bit. And I think everybody just kind of wants to see first. I haven't met anybody who's completely opposed to taking it ever. I think most people are just like, I want to see. I want to see. I don't want to be the first. I don't want to be among the first to take it. And I think that's valid. I think there are also people who are very eager to take it because they just want to get back to living normally. And I think we all kind of have that feeling as well. But so not much of an opinion.
No, that's a solid opinion, and that's kind of echoed the sentiments that I've been hearing. I was at work yesterday and last night, and that was pretty much the consensus. Is like, I ain't taking it first, let that first batch, just because, with the trials, it's typically like you can't, and I've been saying this the whole time, you can't really gauge the long-term effects of it. It's impossible to, when they just made it last month. There's no way to know what it's gonna do in a year. But Rob, you have any opinions on it?
Well, I just saw an article recently, and I saw a video clip from it that essentially said, and if I can find it, I'll post it in the chat.
Cool.
That the airlines, at least a CEO of an airline over in Europe, said that their airline is going to require people to take the vaccine in order to travel on their airline. And he was saying that this is something that he's talked to other CEOs, and it's something that might span the entire business of airlines. So it feels like there are different ways that people are trying to force us to possibly take it. Like, you can't leave unless you take it. Well, what's that about? So I am very hesitant myself about the vaccine. I have not taken it, and to that point, okay. So at Howard, I'm getting my MFA at Howard, and we have to get screened, right, to go on campus. You can't go on campus unless, and Dave, I know you know because you took the test to help me with my project, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah, and when I went to Howard Student Health Center to, get tested, they said, we have the vaccine available if you want to take it. Yeah, Howard has it. and that was very shocking to me, that why, out of all these other places that are struggling to get it and, who want to get it, why does Howard already have it?
I
But
think Joel said, when was this that you
so the first time I went to get tested, they didn't have it. They didn't have the vaccine, and that was in like September. But in November, just for the project, I went again just to cover myself, and they had it. They had it there, man. So
feel like it wasn't released yet? They might have had something else. They had some. They using that Trump vaccine. They had some Clorox in a syringe. They were trying to get you. Don't let them get you. No.
Well, and the gentleman who was in front of me, he was also a Howard student. He's like, yo, I already took it. When they asked him, he's like, no, I already took it. So there are people, amongst our population, who are taking it immediately, which, surprised me too. I was like, no, keep it away from me. But,
I'm good. Yeah, yeah.
So just to conclude, and to pretty much summarize, I feel like there's going to be a lot of pressure coming from different places, like, okay, so if it starts on airlines, how long until you can't go back to school until your child takes the vaccine, or you can't go back to college or on campus until you take the vaccine. You can't go back to work until you take the vaccine. It looks like it might start going that way, and that's very concerning, because what if I don't want to take it, which I do not. I've tested negative twice, and I haven't taken it. I've stopped taking the flu shot. I haven't gotten the flu. So I'm very cautious of certain things entering my bloodstream and stuff. Now, just having said that, a little joke, I still eat my bacon. So I'm not as hesitant about certain things in it.
Right.
I'm worried about this vaccine. I'm worried about it. I don't want to take it.
Yeah, it's I mean, I definitely from that aspect, it starts to get a little eerie. It's like how they. I mean, I have heard that with certain institutions, they're working to implement something where if you don't take the vaccine, you would have to just show a negative test to be able to return, say, to work or school. But like you said, there are places that are taking that hardline stance that are saying, oh, you got to have the vaccine or this or that, which they've done with things like the measles vaccine and things like that, for schools and stuff. And I mean, there's logic behind it, saying just keep people safe, but also there's the other side of it. Like you said, people that just don't want to take it, but also, people who may have issues with it or worry about what the side effects may be, related to it and things of that nature. They always try to get these, especially these mass-produced vaccines down to like a 0.5 or 0.1 or something like that in side effects, which is great that little amount of people get it. But what about that little amount of people? Like, what do they suffer with? Heads explode or something. I don't know. But anyway, it's like I said, it's just a little unnerving. So I think. Like I said, the consensus and the way I feel about it is I definitely probably won't be in the first group or the first few groups. Like I know they do, like with computer systems, they do beta testing and they put it out to people, a certain amount of people, and let them, work with it for a while, because there's no way that any one organization can anticipate all of the eventualities of how it will be used or how it will affect, the people that are using it. So that's the way to do it. So I feel like this is kind of like they're putting it out. It's kind of the beta test. And then, when they were working on it, you would hear words like fast track and turbo and stuff. And that's not stuff I want to hear with something that, like Robye said, is going in my body. I want you to take your time and get it right and do, everything you need to do. So that's just my opinion of the situation. I want to move on a little bit here to one of the reasons that Joel has joined us today. We want to talk a little bit about this huge news in the sports world. John Wall for Russell Westbrook. It's a huge trade. And, there's been a lot of opinions about it. People talking about both of the players, how valuable they still are, as opposed to when they were in their prime and things of that nature. So, Joel, can you give us a little bit about, first of all, like with this trade, like the specifics or anything you found out about it, and then also like your analysis of what you think it'll do for the teams. Now, Robye, focus and pay attention. She knows a lot more about basketball than probably anybody that I've met. Anyway, I like to put pressure on people before they start.
I really don't care for all that pressure, Dave. I don't even know Robye, so he may be an expert, and you set me up. But I'm really excited. I am super excited, as you know, about the trade. I absolutely love John Wall, especially for his community work in DC. So he will be very missed. But as you know, Russell Westbrook is one of my favorite players, and he's been for a while. My dad actually, a couple birthdays ago, my dad came to DC to take me to a Wizards OKC game because he knew how much I loved Russell Westbrook. So I'm thrilled to be able to have him in the city and to be able to see him any given night when we get back into the arenas. So I'm excited about that. We all know that Russell Westbrook is an MVP player, and in comparing him to John Wall, I would say they're very comparable players, but I think Russell Westbrook is just kind of a little better, a little faster, and so I think he will bring a lot to the Wizards. Notably, of course, we haven't seen John Wall for a couple of years because of injury, most recently his Achilles injury. So while losing John, definitely a big loss to the city, and I know that was a tough decision for management to make. We really don't know what John is going to look like, when he comes back from an Achilles injury. We know that's one of the worst injuries in basketball, especially for a point guard, right? Especially for that role, very athletic. That's really what John has relied upon. So I think they're comparable, but I think we can expect a lot more from Russ. He's been pretty consistent. He had one of his best seasons last year with the Houston Rockets. He played pretty well alongside James Harden. Of course, the pandemic kind of halted everything, so we didn't get to see the fullness of him in the season. We definitely did get to see them in the playoffs. I think he's going to make a huge difference for the Wizards. I think it's going to make Bradley Beal even more of a superstar than he already is. Brad had also one of his best seasons last year. He was top 5 points per game. I think that might even though Russ does shoot a lot, right? So we can expect that he's going to have the ball a lot. Russ draws a lot of attention. He's super fast, so he draws a lot of attention, probably a lot of double teams, which is going to make Bradley Beal open. I think Brad is really a shooter more than anything, so I think that's going to really open him up. And I also think Russ is going to step in as just a leader. He's a veteran right now. He's an MVP leader, and he's going to bring that energy to the team. A lot of young guys, I can't remember the kid's name that we drafted a couple years ago, the Japanese kid, I think it's Hachimura. Moro, does that sound right? Yeah, I think he's going to step up his game. I think this is year 3 for him. So I think we're really going to see 2 or 3, might be 2 or 3. So I think this is where we're going to see him take off. I think with Russell's leadership, that's going to be really, really interesting to see.
See, I told you, Rob. She was already coaching. She was like, he's going to open them up with the double team to get people.
She should be on ESPN.
I told you, yeah.
When you were giving your analysis, Joel, that's what it sounded like. I was like, oh, you're
I watch a lot.
There you go.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, there you have it. Expert analysis from our own NBA correspondent, Joel Laguerre. I appreciate that. So, a few more things I'm going to talk about before we get into this interview. Not much, because, I'm looking forward to talking to my boy. But but I definitely wanted to touch on a couple of more topics. And there we go. All right. Getting my notes together. I keep notes. But anyway, so Joel and I talked briefly before the show about this. I'm gonna ask you, Rob, if you saw the video of the Dallas restaurant owner of True Kitchen and Cocktails. The owner's name is Kevin Kelly, and he went on what some are calling a tirade over women twerking in his establishment. This is an interesting debate going on. First of all, have you seen the video, Rob?
I saw the video.
Okay. So you got some context. So I'm gonna say my little piece, and I'm gonna get you guys' opinion on it. So like I said, it was interesting to me, not surprising, but interesting that the responses to the video were so polarized and ranging so widely from people who felt, marginalized and offended that on one side that a woman felt the need to express herself in that way, in that location, by shaking her butt. And on the other side, the people who felt marginalized and offended that the owner had the audacity to publicly chastise customers like that. And so I understand to a certain extent both arguments. I think I lean more toward my understanding of the business owner's argument, just because, and it's tough for me just because I'm not a woman and I don't know, but like I even feel like some of the arguments that I heard about on the side of the women twerking, things like they shouldn't have been playing that music if they didn't want us, and that's kind of, to, in my opinion, likened to like, oh, if you don't want niggas to dance, don't play me. It's like, come on, man. This is, even though it was, what was the song was "Throw That Ass in a Circle," and it's a Dallas song. So in that area, it's like a big song, and people react to it a certain way. And from that aspect, I do understand, just from a musical aspect, the effect that music has on people. I was thinking when I was writing this earlier, I was thinking about like, would it be the same effect if, say, they played like gospel music and somebody started like doing a praise dance or something, and would it have gotten the same? But of course, that to a certain extent is more socially acceptable, or is it, than twerking, but yeah, so it was interesting to me, and what I was saying to Joel earlier was I feel like we as a community have an issue with taking admonishment. Like when somebody's saying something to a group of people, like, and I liken it to, and I think Wes Felton brought up on his page about back when when Bill Cosby had did his speech about the young black guys wearing their pants hanging down and being disrespectful and things, and a lot of stuff that he said had a ring of truth to it, but people just really harped on like, who does he think he is, telling us we can't, blah blah blah, and this, that, and the third, as opposed to kind of taking it like, oh, okay. I mean, that argument, of course, doesn't hold much water, just because of the current situation that Bill Cosby's in. But I say all that to say, yeah, you guys have both seen the video. I started with Joel the last time, so I'll go to you, Robye, first. What's your opinion of it? Did you feel like either side was necessarily right or wrong?
Well, you know what? I think the way that the owner admonished his customer, I think that could be a more tactful way to do that.
I agree.
You can just write a note, have a waiter or waitress, just talk to her on the side, just perhaps maybe there's a different manner of behavior that she could have done if it's not appropriate in his restaurant, right? But don't yell at her. Don't, I mean, he even cursed,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's a appropriate way to talk to another adult, especially someone you don't know, right? Especially someone who is a customer at your establishment. They're there because they're enjoying themselves at your place. They're willing to spend money at your place. So you have to, I believe you have to kind of cater to that a little bit. Treat her with respect, even if she's not, her behavior is not appropriate for your establishment. But like I said, just give her a little note. Just have a waiter or waitress go to her. Just say, maybe you can act this way or whatever. And to your point, David, you brought up music, and hey, what if it was gospel music as opposed to, this song that is real big in Dallas? Well, you know what? That's on the ownership, right? If you're going to play a song that that in Dallas, this is a song that people are going to do this to, right? Like just about every time you play it, I mean, you got to meet people where they are, right? So as opposed to playing that, maybe you could play something a little more lighter, a little more, maybe the cadence of a certain song is more to the level that you want in your establishment. There's elevator music for elevators, right? There's restaurant music for restaurants. There's gospel music for churches. If you're gonna put on party music, then this, twerking is a possible outcome. And as a owner, that's something you have to prepare for. So I'm not necessarily upset at the customer at all. You know, if the guidelines aren't clear, if you're catering to a certain audience in a certain manner, then even if we may hold the expectation that if you put on certain music, that doesn't necessarily mean people are going to dance to it, but maybe as opposed to us having that expectation of other people, just assume that certain things are a possibility and just prepare for it, you know? So that's my opinion on that. I side with the customer.
Okay. Okay.
You
Definitely.
side with the twerk. You side with the twerker.
Well, if it's not clear what the guidelines are in a certain establishment, because if you if you go to many brunches, right? And I think that's what that was.
Yeah.
People do dance at brunches. People will drink their mimosas,
Yeah.
start getting a little tipsy on the mimosas, and start twerking. That happens. So if that's not what you want at your establishment, then you have to be very clear on the expectations of your establishment. And perhaps maybe he wasn't. He
Yeah.
eventually did, you know, get clear, but again, I don't think the manner in which he did it was appropriate. I don't think you yell at your customers, curse at them, or anything like that if you want to keep having customers. you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. And people were, talking about that, about the addition of alcohol to the situation and things like that. But Joe, I know you can't stay too long, so I do want to get your opinion on this situation before you skedaddle on us now. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I agree with Robert in that, expectations are critical, right? And I think the I don't want to say the burden, but the onus on setting the expectations, is the responsibility of the owner. And I think that he was attempting to do that in the video that I saw. So I didn't see the video of the twerking or him um, talking to directly to that individual or that table, but I've heard that he approached them or someone on staff approached them not once, but at least two times. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So I think that was the most appropriate way to handle it. As Robert said, if not a note, speaking to them directly and setting an expectation for, if you're going to continue to stay here. I don't like the what I would call, I think is a good word, admonishment. I don't think adults like to be admonished, right? Not particularly Black people. I don't think adults like to be admonished. That's I think that's understandable. And I do think that a lot of the admonishment that is directed at our community comes across as anti-Black. Right. I think we have to recognize that a lot of what is seen as professional and, posh is defined by whiteness. And so I think sometimes as Black people, we do get appropriately a little uncomfortable with, people coming at us for what we sometimes feel like is just a part of our culture. And so I won't go into how I feel about sagging pants or twerking or anything like that, but I don't have a problem with people saying, hey, 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 don't talk to us like we're kids. And I think part of what we heard from that owner, at least the video that I saw, just sounded like a principal talking to, students, like, get yourself together. I tried to do something nice for y'all. And, like that, yeah, like he addressed those people. If I understand correctly, they did leave, and then he directed his frustration to everybody else in the restaurant. I don't think that was necessary, right? At that point, if he understood that, okay, I've dealt with the offending party, and now moving forward, maybe I need to set a different expectation. Then you go forward and do that on your website, post a sign, or change the music to DJ. Go forward and do that, right? But yelling at adults, customers, like their kids, I think is where is that's I'm not cool with that. I'm not cool with that.
Definitely, definitely. When you said post a sign, I immediately pictured like a booty with the circle and the line through. That's what I pictured as the sign. I don't know why, but that's what came to mind. So yeah. Do you have to run?
I do have to run. Regrettably, I really wanted to hear a little bit more about Robye, what you're doing, but I will listen to the playback.
Okay.
So
Good. I
Thank
really
you.
great
appreciate
to
you so much.
Yep.
Thank you, Joe, for
thank
stepping in. I appreciate you so much.
my pleasure. My pleasure. You know, I
You should
always like to
definitely
talk
do
back.
like a sports show. Like I said, just listening to you and watching you give your analysis. I mean, Dave's right. You're great. You should definitely
Thank you.
maybe
Thank
weekly or something. That would be great.
you.
I'm not
I'm
gonna
a
say
little
I
bit of a
told you
scared.
so. I'm not gonna say
I'm a
it.
little bit of a scaredy cat, but Dave has been very encouraging. It's definitely something I may consider.
That's good. That's
Thank
good.
you.
Yep.
All right, Joe. I'll talk to you
Gentlemen,
soon.
have a good one. Bye.
All right, man. Let's get into this interview, brother.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your path, because being the HU, you see I'm rapping for you.
Oh yeah, there
I
you go.
got you.
There
I'm
you go.
holding you
Thank
down. Yeah,
you.
yeah, definitely, definitely. You
Yeah,
know,
we are here.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I always like to start off by taking it back a little bit. I wanted to ask you about your past. If you think about little Robye Anderson, and I remember that dude. I knew that dude. But so do you
Yeah.
remember like when people would ask you what you wanted to be when you grow up? Do you remember what you would tell
Yeah. My father brings it up a lot of times to me. He's like, "You said you didn't know."
them? Okay, okay.
So, you know, uh, when I think about my youth and we talked about certain people in the past. They have an idea of what they want to do immediately, and
Hmm.
they go for that. Well, I wasn't built like that, and I
Right.
realized that about myself. I realized, hey, when I was younger, I might have been good at sports, but I was also good at writing. I was also good at painting. I was also good at a lot of different things. So when you're kind of like I was as a youth, kind of all over the place. I mean,
Hmm.
in church, I was on the usher board. Then I stayed on the usher board mainly, but I tried out the church choir, the
Right. Yeah.
choir for a little bit. I was doing different things, just trying to figure out which way to go. So in terms of the development of that,
Right.
well, I focused a little more on my writing, a little more on my creativity, and
Right.
that's where I'm going right now. So
That's
I,
dope.
I hope to stay on that line and that path, and so far it's been working for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And something you said is so important, and I want to touch on it a little bit because in dealing with youth, I've come across a lot of people, and I know you've taught, and so see if you have also. A lot of people from school age to even adults nowadays who are really in that phase of not really having an understanding of what they want to do, like having feeling like they don't really, have that purpose. And that process that you just talked about of going through different things and kind of seeing where you feel like you fit is so important. But I feel like it's kind of lacking. I don't know why nowadays it is, but like I said, you touched on it a little bit, and that process is so important. Did you see that maybe in your teaching that some people, a lot of people have that?
Oh yeah. So when I taught ninth grade history, you know, one of the things I would start out with is we would have the projector, and I
Mm-hmm.
would ask the students, all right, tell me what school you want to go to for college. So we would just, put it on the screen, the requirements of what it takes to get into this school. I said,
Okay.
you said you want to go here. This is what you got to do. You got to have this 3.8. You got to have this 4.0. And a
Right.
lot of the schools, were non HBCU,
Mm-hmm.
from the freshman year. And you would look at gradually if the students would you know, do what they wanted to do to get into the school that they said they wanted to get into freshman year. And, you know, you look at the progress, and
Right.
a lot of times the students would, you know, tend not to go to the University of Oregon or Oklahoma, Florida State, or wherever. Now,
Right.
in some cases, they definitely would. But for, you know, the reason why I did that is because of my own personal experience, right?
Right.
If you're not necessarily clear on what you want to do, then at least know what it would take to get
Right.
to where you want to be, right? At
Right.
least know
Yeah.
so that you can start making choices. Going back to my own personal experience again, right? Uh, in terms of Howard, I knew I wanted to go to Howard. I knew that, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I grew up around HBCUs. My mother graduated from Virginia State College before it became a university.
Okay. Dope. Dope. Yeah.
My grandmother, Claflin College down in Orangeburg. I have a bunch of family who went to South Carolina State and Benedict and Allen and South Carolina, all HBCUs. And on the other side, you know, I have family on my father's side in Texas who went to Prairie View and Texas Southern and schools like that. So I have that. I had that HBCU in me. Now, my uncle, you know, who was my mother's brother, who's a South Carolina State graduate, he was trying hard to get me to go to South Carolina State. And
Okay.
I know
Yeah.
you know Jason in our church. You know,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
went to South Carolina State,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, but I did not go
Right. Right. Yeah.
because I knew what I wanted, where I wanted to go.
Yeah. Man.
I knew since eighth grade I wanted to go to Howard, right? So seventh grade it was I'm either going to go to Georgetown or Howard. In eighth grade, I was like, I'm going to Howard, and that's it. So, in I think when you know what you want to do and you have better outcomes if you make a plan toward that. You know,
Definitely.
and
Definitely.
Howard was the only school I applied to. I was a little arrogant, you know, because Howard could have said no, and then what, right?
Yeah, yeah, but they didn't, man. That's
Yeah,
how you. And sometimes you gotta, ride that arrogance to your success, or that quote unquote arrogance, because it's more just having confidence in yourself. If you don't have that, nobody's gonna have it.
right.
And so, to have the audacity to say I'm gonna write a book or I'm gonna, become a filmmaker and things like that, is something that a lot of times people will shoot those dreams down or have will put their own fears and things on it. But you gotta have that quote unquote arrogance, to keep it moving and keep and reaching the achievements that you have reached. So you answered a couple of things you talked about because I was going to ask you, how you chose Howard. So you talked about wanting to go there, and you knew a little earlier than I did because I think I was still unsure. I had applied to a couple of colleges. I wasn't sure I wanted to go to Howard until my senior year. A little college tour, and Howard was one of the places that we went to. And honestly, it was more superficial than because it was like when I seen all the women, I was like, this is home. I'm home. This is where I need to be. But but yeah, and so that's how that went down. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the classes that you took up there. I read somewhere that one of the creative writing classes that you took was taught
Right.
by one of our great American literature, literary greats, E.R. Braithwaite. Am I saying it
Yeah,
right?
yeah, Professor Braithwaite.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm sorry if there's a bunch of noise all around me, Dave.
Oh,
I'm in
you
my
good? You
car.
sound good.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
you coming in
So
clear.
yeah, that was kind of spontaneous because it was, it was an elective course because my minor was well, at that sophomore year I didn't technically have a minor.
Right. You don't
It
think about it.
was journalism, but then I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I was
Right.
moving toward film, but my major was political science. So
Okay, probably so.
yeah, so I didn't need to take it. But like I said, I've it's been a slow, gradual movement toward my creative side. But
Right.
that was one of the classes that I started kind of dabbling in to move, and I didn't know anything about Professor Braithwaite
Mm-hmm.
before I took his class, but then started researching more about him, and I'm like, oh wow, you're like a big deal.
Yeah,
You know?
right, right.
But you know, he was older then. He was like in his 80s or whatnot
Mhm.
at Howard teaching us, and he would talk about. And I was in that class with the creator of what is it called, Black Love, um,
Oh, okay.
Cody Elaine Brooks.
Okay, okay,
Yep,
nice.
yep.
Yeah.
That show, I think it comes on either TV1 or Oprah Winfrey's Own, one of those.
Okay, yeah. Dope, dope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But you know, Professor Braithwaite, I got a B in that class. I
Okay.
deserved an A. Okay,
Okay.
he straight up told me. He told me straight up. He's
Mhm.
like, he's not to toot my own horn, but
Right,
he
right,
said like you're the best writer in here, but I'm not giving you an A. And I said why? Like I'm
right,
on an A. He's like I'm not
right.
giving you an A because the best stuff that you'll write you haven't written in this class. So
Mhm.
he's like I'm not giving you an A. Like all right,
Yeah.
cool. I understand. He's like in the future if I keep writing, and Professor Braithwaite he lived right up. What is that Connecticut? Yeah, Connecticut. Off
Okay.
of right across from the zoo.
Oh wow, wow, that's a nice
Yeah,
area. Tinley Town.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I mailed him the copy of my book and the first copy,
Mm.
and he edited it and he called me and he said, I want to meet with you. So we met across from Starbucks, and this is after graduation.
Right, right.
He left Howard. This was maybe a year or so after Howard, and
Mm.
what three years after I took his class. And he said he read it and he said he liked aspects of it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he gave me a lot of suggestions though. He gave me a lot of suggestions. So
Okay.
I appreciated that. He was available. You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
very famous. He wrote "To Serve with Love," and
Right.
he was Sidney Poitier acted in that movie,
Yeah.
and he he would always say they didn't need a script for his for the movie because he wrote the book so well, so they didn't need a like okay, Professor
Right,
Braithwaite,
right, right.
just as accomplished as he is,
Yeah.
coming from Guyana, he was born in Guyana, raised there.
Okay.
He served in the British military during World War II, and
Wow.
he talked about some of those experiences. Some of the things he saw. He saw limbs, and, all types of stuff
Mm-hmm.
in World War II, and just constantly going forward in his life. Just he said, whatever you do, do it well. You know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
so and he lived a long time. He lived, I think, 102 years,
Wow.
maybe longer. So he
Yeah.
just passed away a few years ago. So
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's an amazing story, man. There's a couple of little things that you touched on in there that I'm trying to hold on to ask out the question. The main thing is just like having somebody like that who's proven, whose skills and ability are proven. And I mean, whether there's truth to I wrote the scripts, I wrote the
right.
book so well they didn't need the script. Regardless, it became this huge thing, and it's
Yep.
something that came from his brain. So to have somebody with that skill set and that proven ability to see enough in you to not just read the book and say, hey, good job, and say, I want to meet with you and give you pointers and be like, yo, this is good. This is how you can make it great. That's so dope, bro. Like,
Yeah.
man, I don't know. Like,
Well, I
wow.
find inspiration from different sources,
Yeah,
different
yeah.
people. I mean, Dave, you definitely inspire me too.
Oh, go ahead, man.
I
Go
see
ahead,
your
man.
consistency. You're very consistent. You've been doing the podcast shows for years now.
Yeah,
You
yeah. It's been a
did
while.
you're getting over the hump. Now you're doing neighborhoodish, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's on and on and on. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
that's something I definitely respect that you do, and
Well,
that's
I
a key to
appreciate it, bro.
success. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. So I definitely appreciate your consistency, and it inspires me. Hey,
Definitely, man.
keep going, don't give up.
Yeah.
So
Well, I appreciate that, man. It means a
yeah,
lot coming from you. But so I I wanted to ask you about, since you mentioned the book, I wanted to ask you a little bit about it. So, like I said, in my opinion, it's a great piece of American literature. Like I've read it
Thank you.
more than once, and I want to know, like, so how much of the stories in it are based on real stories, and how much was stuff
It's
that you just
fiction, Dave.
created?
It's
It's
fiction.
all fiction. Is it so? Is it fiction
I,
like
I
best
always
man
I
fiction?
always say that. I always say that. You know,
Okay,
we all have a little bit of ourselves in what we do. You know,
right.
when you're rapping, you know, you can definitely hear some of the experiences in your life. You know, when I'm writing, you know, some of the experiences in my life are in there. But you know, we have imaginations too. So
Right.
I like I said, is a fictional novel, and
Okay.
I you know, this is the first version,
Right.
and I'm glad that you have one in a signed copy. You know, I'm glad you
Definitely.
have it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
there it is, there it
Right.
is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, it was one of those things because I self-published it when I was working, when I was teaching in Prince George's County Public Schools, and
Right.
you know, just saving up my little teaching checks to get it done, and
That's
you know,
dope.
just like we talked about being consistent and moving forward. So I have
Hmm.
other stories that I've written. I just have to get them out there and publish them and see how they do. But
Right.
you know, it was a journey because
Yeah.
it was my
Yeah.
first one,
Hmm.
and I edited it for like 7 years after I wrote it. You
And
know,
that's definitely understandable. Like with anything that comes from you, you want to give it that amount of attention. Of course, you in the process, you pick up things along the way that'll make that next time you do that process go that much more quicker. But your first time, I
I
remember,
hope so.
like, you said what?
I hope so.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I remember Jay-Z has said, your first album, and I liken it to any first, your first movie, your first book, your first anything, is gonna be your piece de resistance, just because it's like that's the culmination of all of your years of before you got there and everything you've learned and everything you put into it. And then
Right.
once you drop it, then you have other, means of doing things and stuff. But this is the first one that's going to be all the stuff that built up inside of you. So you touched on it a little bit, but you're giving me great segues. I appreciate you, because I wanted to talk about a little bit about the fact, like, writing a book, especially one this involved, is such a deep process, like, that you go through, and it's definitely time consuming. It's a labor of love at times. Can you talk a little bit about? So you said 7 years of editing. So from inception to the finished product that you have, like, what was that time like?
Got you. So, all right. So, graduating from Howard, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
had this story on my brain,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time, you know, I moved back into my parents' house right after
Mm-hmm.
graduation, and you know, my mother, I told my parents, my mother and father, I want to write this book, and my mother, Rosa Anderson, she went and bought this Dell computer so that I could write it. So you
Oh,
know, I definitely appreciate her. You know, that was essentially the start.
that's
So
dope. That's dope.
you
Yeah.
know, I I write often anyway. I'm always writing notes and things like that. I
Mm-hmm.
have papers all over the place, and I just started putting things together. You know, I just started sitting at that computer and writing. And eventually I had a novel and I showed it to my parents and they gave their edits as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then I showed it to Professor Braithwaite, then I showed it to the young woman who edited it for me, Deborah Meadows. Her artist name is J Lyrical,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I just kept I used their advice, but I had things that I wanted to add and things I wanted to subtract, and
Right.
I modified some of the things as I grew. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I
Mm-hmm.
said, 7 years, so that's experience, time, things like that.
Right.
So after the final edits, you know, at that time I was teaching. I think I finally finished editing it for real in 2015. but I have in the book 2011 or 2012, right? But I still added and took away little touches and things like that.
Right.
But you know, saving up the money and then working with Michael Joaquin Thomas. I drew the cover. I drew it, and I'm not that great at drawing, but his creativity on the cover with his graphic design skills and his artistic skills, and just moving forward, and like I said, saving up the money, publishing it. That for me, that was a good experience because if you can do that, you can do other things as well. And
Exactly.
I want to move forward to saving up and making independent movies. And I have a lot of people want to go to Hollywood or go to this publisher or this and that and the other. But my mentality, in terms of that business aspect of it, or in order to move forward, is very independent. I self-published my book, and I feel like I can do certain things on my own, and with the help of people like yourself, people who are around me, to help move forward. You know what I mean? And I feel like I can help them move forward as well. I feel like it can be a balance. I mean, one of the things that I put in the book, I definitely put a scene with you in the book, perform.
I appreciate that. I read that one a couple of times. I had to.
Yeah. Because when I found out that this is something that you did at Howard, and then I started learning more about your process, I was like, oh yeah, this is necessary. This has to be here because
I appreciate you.
Yeah. So in terms of moving forward, you see people like, for example, you mentioned Jay-Z. Well, he started, independently. He talks about taking his CDs and to different record companies and different radio stations as well, and they're just tossing it. And people consider him now the greatest rapper of all time. But look where he started. He started very independently on his own, moving forward. You look at people like Tyler Perry. We talking about film. Tyler Perry, very independent. Saved up his money, put on his first show down in Atlanta. He said nobody came. And then he continued the process. He worked odd jobs, lived in his car, saved his money, and put on another show. And eventually, someone who was capable of taking his show on the road helped him do that. But he made it outside of the traditional system, right? He made it outside of, everyone wants to go here to make it, go there to make it. But I think you said this quote as well: "The grass is green where you water it." So
definitely.
I think in terms of the plan that I have, I think just have to keep going forward, and that's why I definitely appreciate and respect your consistency. Because you just got to keep going forward. You just got to, because you never know what can happen. But if you don't do anything, then nothing's gonna happen.
Exactly. You get out what you put in, and definitely, like, if you have a plan and a process that you work in, I always say stick to it. If it's set to do something and garner certain results, it may not happen in the time frame that you're looking for it to happen. But 9 times out of 10, as long as you don't give up, you'll be able to tailor it better as you go along. Like you said with the book, how over the time you learn different stuff and maybe change different things. So and that's the same thing with your plan. But I mean, as long as it's the same, you're working toward the same outcome. There's no way that if you stay on it, you won't eventually reach it, or get some semblance of gratification from it. So sticking with the process of creating the book, what are some of the biggest obstacles that you found, like, in the process, like things that you had to face and kind of overcome?
Well, okay, so when I was attempting to get it printed, right, I would go to these publishers, printers, they have these warehouses outside of Baltimore or outside of Annapolis, and where I
Mm-hmm.
finally got it printed was in Odenton, Maryland.
Okay.
Right at actually the is interesting the street where I got it printed. Is called Anderson's Crossing. So
Wow.
yeah, it's
What a
very
coincidence, huh?
yeah, crazy, right? I
Yeah,
didn't even
yeah.
know that until I'm looking at the map, driving like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and to talk about some of the prior experiences,
Mm-hmm.
people will try to hustle you, man.
Yeah, yeah,
They'll try
yeah.
to hustle you. So I had one guy. He said, "All right, well, if you pay $15 each time somebody wants to buy it, he'll print it, but he'll print it for $15." I'm like, I'm only selling it for 20 something. Like, hold up.
Right, right, right.
So, and when I started doing the math, I'm like, yo, you're trying to overcharge me for
Mm-hmm.
something that we already prior, had a agreement where it was only supposed to be like $5 to $7 a printing. So
Right.
they'll try to Jedi mind trick you out here,
Mm-hmm.
man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, give me what we already talked about. So then he said, well, I can't do it. Sorry. Like, wow,
Wow.
you already
Yeah.
said you could. So
Right, right.
I guess he thought he could hustle me, and then you talk to these folks, and other printers, and they're like, oh yeah, we can do it, and we'll do it for this that, but it's something will come up when they realize that you're not trying to be hustled. You're
Right. Yeah,
not
yeah.
going to let them scam you.
Right.
And they're
Yeah.
going to keep trying. So that was one of the most complicated parts of it. It's like I have everything that we agreed upon, and now you think you can hustle me because you're meeting me. Maybe you're seeing my face for the first time.
Right, right, yeah.
You have an impression of what I am, but I'm not that. So
Right. Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
gonna walk away, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Stick to
Yeah.
my price point. Which is what
Yeah.
I finally got. You know.
That's good. Yeah, if you stick to it. And I mean, I think it's so important what you mentioned is not, knowing it's picking your battles, is knowing when it's time to stand and fight and say, I'm gonna prove to this person that I'm not that, or let them have their idea of me. Let me go over here and do something with people who understand who I am, understand my wealth. And
Yeah.
that is something that takes time to come. It's a level of wisdom that takes time to come upon. And but once you get it and you have an understanding of your worth and the worth of your art, of your skill, because I think what you said is prevalent in a lot of industries where there are so many people out there that know that they are hungry people who have this thing inside of them that they want to get out, that they want to share with the world so passionately that they're not necessarily as up on the business side of it. So they'll make these bad deals, they'll sign these bad contracts, to just to feel like they've, accomplished something. And even that need for that feeling of accomplishment puts them even more in a position to make bad deals and things. But if you just, take your time, be patient, be focused, and understand that a lot of people are trying to scam you, like you said, as opposed to help you, you know, um, 9 times out of 10, you'll come out, on the better side of that. So,
A lot of
like you said,
lot of scammers out here, Dave. A
definitely,
lot of
definitely.
scammers.
So, that's an awesome lesson. But I want to talk, hear from you. What do you think is the biggest lesson you learned from the process of of creating your book?
Well, one of the lessons that I learned is that it's okay to take your time, and
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people have this impression that things need to happen immediately. Things need to speed up, get this done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that, but it's about the path that you're on, and it's about God's plan for you and all of those things. Because the if I had put out what my original 2006 version, I don't know if that would have been the best representation of
Right. Right.
me and what I wanted to put out there. That was my 2005, 2006, 21, 22-year-old mind.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't know. And when we think about certain things, a lot of the rap music that is very popular now is a lot of youth, right? A lot of
Right. Yeah.
youngsters that
Yeah.
maybe, and you hear Jay-Z talk about it, in terms of he doesn't want, certain things for his daughter, right? But
Right.
maybe, when he was 25 and 26, he wasn't thinking about some of the things that he put out there and how it might reflect upon, our culture and women
Right.
and so
Right.
forth and so on. So again, if I had put some of those things out there in the book when, in my young 21, 22-year-old mind, maybe it wouldn't have been the best representation. And, that was something that, the more the older I got, the more conscious of it I became.
Mm.
So, it's good for people to see a transformation,
Right.
that's okay. But I think that it's also okay to put your best foot forward. And maybe sometimes it's going to take time,
Right.
for you
Yeah.
to put your best foot forward. I mean, maybe you don't even know,
Yeah.
which one is your best foot,
Right. Right.
which
Right.
one's, your lagging foot and this, that,
Right.
and so
Exactly.
on. So it's all right to grow and take time as well. So
Okay.
that's also a lesson that I learned. Just trust the process. Trust the
Yeah.
process,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that time and taking that time to really grow into the artist that you will be, as opposed to being in a rush. Like I say, everything, especially these days, is so much more based around instant gratification
Yeah.
that it's hard to find. That it shows in the lack of quality in a lot of the things that that we consume these days. So when you take your time and do it right, those things are typically held at a higher regard, and so it's
Right.
worth doing, definitely. So I definitely see the connection between like writing a book and filmmaking. But can you talk a little bit about like how that transition of your mindset, or is it necessarily a transition, or what brought about the idea to move toward film?
All right. Well, when I was at Howard,
Mm-hmm.
I okay. So first, my minor was journalism. We talked about
Right.
that, but I wanted to create. I wanted to create. I didn't necessarily want to, document what all these other creators were doing. I want to be a creator myself. So
Right.
I started moving toward film and cinematography and in my minor, right? I said, let me just finish this poli sci major. Let's finish this degree, but let me start dabbling a little bit, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Some of the guys I started hanging around after graduation and even before, a lot of them went to Howard
Mm-hmm.
and they all started wanting to make movies as well. So, that kind of pushed it forward a little bit as well. But in terms of the transition, like when I write, I see the images. I see how everything should look, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as opposed to just leaving it on, in a novel, I
Mm-hmm.
would love to have people actually see at least my interpretation as well of some of those things
So,
that I write. So, when I started writing scripts, it wasn't, well, that it depends on who's editing and reading the script, right? Because I'm in a
right.
script writing class now, and the script writing teacher, she doesn't like a bunch of black ink on the paper. She's like, just keep it simple on the paper. Now,
Mm-hmm.
during my time at Howard in the MFA program, Barry Jenkins, he did a Zoom meeting with all of us, and he said he loves to write all of this stuff on the paper. He loves
Mm-hmm.
to write it out, and Quentin Tarantino, he says that as well. He
Yeah.
writes, he essentially writes his scripts like a book,
Mm-hmm.
and you know I want to do that. Maybe not
Right.
in the classes that I'm in, but outside of the classes, yeah, I'm gonna write my style, how I think
Right.
would best interpret my vision.
Right.
And I think that you know it's not that difficult of a transition, in my opinion,
Right.
when you know you're doing your best to describe what your vision is in a novel. Well, you want, in my opinion, you want your actors and your actresses and your crew to have as much information as they possibly can to create your vision as well. So, the transition I don't think is that difficult of one in terms of writing. Now, maybe technical, right? Some of the areas that I need to improve in cinematography, right? That's one of the main ones. That's something I'm working on, the technical aspect. But in terms of the writing, I don't think that the transition is that difficult.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I definitely see the connection, but I appreciate you breaking it down. For people who may not be as privy to that side of creativity and things of that nature. So, like you mentioned already, I worked with you recently um, on your one of your projects, and I noticed, like, as a filmmaker in that creative process, you're very present and detail oriented, in everything, every shot and every angle and things of that nature. Is that something that you have learned through the class, or is that something that's always been
Well, so before I took any of the classes, I have the vision of what it's supposed to look like anyway. Now, just just to give a prior use example, the cover of the book, right?
right?
Now, I can draw something out, right? There you go. I can draw it out, but in order for me to get it to look a certain way, I might need the help of an artist, right?
Right. Yeah.
Someone who understands how to turn these stick figures into,
Right.
So
Right.
with film, so far that's been my experience as well, right? I
Mm,
can draw all of these, scenes. I can, stick figures, and this is how it's supposed to look. But it's good for at least one of the reasons why I went back to film school. Let's assume that I might not be able to get that person to help me out in that technical manner, right?
right.
Who, I might not be able to get the person who understands lighting, who understands depth of field, who understands how to use the lighting and the aperture and this and that. So that's stuff that I need to know,
Right. Right.
so
Right.
that, hey, if I can't get you to do it, I can do it, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons I went back, and that's something that I feel is important for me to know as I move forward in the filmmaking process. And that with the class, that was the final project, and you know the professor was there. You saw very quiet
Yeah.
for the most,
Yeah.
right? He didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
I kind of forced that issue, like
Okay.
but I felt that this was, at least let me have these tools to do the best that I can do. You know,
Right. Right. Right.
if we have a studio, then you know we're using it for class. How about for the project to help
Right.
me
Right.
to put out the best product that I possibly can, at least at this point of time in my early cinematography career. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but the goal though is to direct, right? And to write and direct, like move.
Well, the goal for me, the goal is to be proficient or advanced in film in order to write, in order to direct, in order to create, in order to produce
Right.
films on an
Right.
independent level
Mm,
that may be able to, provide enough for enough income to live.
right. Yeah. Yeah. That's the goal. Yeah.
So that's the goal. I just to be the best at what I'm trying to do. You
Yeah.
know, which
Yeah.
is great films. So that's the goal, and whether that gets recognized or not, I think the journey matters, and I think that just stepping out there and doing it, like the feeling I felt, when I completed the novel. was a great feeling. Like, from typing downstairs in my mom and dad's basement on this Dell computer my mom bought me, to being able to hand them a completed book, and going around and selling the book. And I went to different bookstores, from Iverson Mall to up in Baltimore, all over the DMV area, Sankofa, actually selling my book. You can go to some of these bookstores right now, my book's there. So this is this film journey, and it's not just for one film. This is because I have a lot of story ideas. I have a lot of objectives I want to accomplish with that. So I hope that this journey will last a lifetime, and I hope that I'll be able to again have an income based upon it. Not be a struggling artist forever, but I whatever the outcome is, at least I can say that I stepped outside of this box that maybe I was in. I stepped outside of it to become a better version of myself, to become this creator that I believe that God has given me an ability to do.
That's dope. Yeah, man. Yeah, and that I interview a lot of people who take those kind of leaps, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who start their own businesses, or who do things like pursuing things like acting, like music, like comedy, things like that. And I always say that just having the wherewithal and the courage to step out there, and my eyes makes people a superhero. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's so dope that because there's such a beaten path, there's such a cut course for us. We see our parents work, and a lot of times, a lot of people, you see your parents go to work and do jobs that they don't really like doing, they don't thoroughly enjoy, but they do out of a sense of responsibility, or just need to have and live comfortably. And it's a good example of hard work and the things that it can do. But it's also, there's another way. You can actually mention this a lot. Dick Clark had a quote where he said the key to happiness is finding out what you love to do, finding a way to monetize it, and finding someone to share it all with. And that's just trying to get people to understand that you can actually have something that you really love. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier, taking the time to actually find out what that thing is, and finding out how to monetize it, as opposed to just working just to be working. And I'm not knocking working in any way. I'm working 2 jobs right now.
Yeah.
But and I mean, money is necessary. Yeah. And I mean, but let it feed what you love. You know what I'm saying? Because ultimately, you need to be putting time and energy into what you love. And that's not always an easy thing, or it's not always a comfortable or safe thing. But I commend you for having the courage to step out there and pursue it. And that's what separates the people who succeed from the people who don't. Is just having the courage to stay on the path. A lot of times having the courage to stay on the path, and being in that on that path enough where you give yourself the opportunity to have the big breaks that are necessary to really proliferate your career. So it's dope.
I look at it like this, Dave. I look at it like this. I think so. Let's say that we never reach that level of fame or accomplishment or whatever that other people have reached, right? Well, one day you'll be able to show your son or your daughter and your wife. You'll be able to say, well, you know what? Look what I've done. You know what I'm saying? Look at the legacy that I'm leaving. I'm leaving this level of creativity. I'm leaving this level of accomplishment for maybe if you all want to pick it up. But if you don't, at least you know you got this in you. This is something that you can do. Your father did this, and this is a route for you. And you see so many people who kind of go the similar paths of what their parents did in the creative world, right?
Right.
Just the other night, I went to see a reissuing of Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo's The Godfather 3. Right? Okay. Now, he just rearranged some scenes, and the ending. Mike didn't die at the ending. He's just old and in the chair. He didn't fall over.
Oh,
No,
okay. Okay.
no big deal, right? I
Right.
thought it
Right.
was going to be something completely different. It
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
looked like a little money scam, but
Right.
hey,
They do that from time to time too.
yeah, like hey, coronavirus is hitting right now. Let's see if we can get some money right fast,
Yeah.
you know.
Right. Exactly.
But the reason why I brought it up is his daughter Sophia Coppola was in the film acting,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a director right now. You
Right.
know,
Right.
so even in the Howard Film Program, actually, the gentleman who founded the Howard Masters of Fine Arts and Film Program, Halle Garema, his son Marlon, I believe is his name, Garema. He's a filmmaker. We had to watch his film
Mm.
in the program. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so at least even if even if Super Dave isn't this universally famous rapper, which I still think one day you're gonna be, but even if
Yeah.
Robby Anderson is never this universally known writer director, which I still feel one day I'm gonna
You're
be,
gonna
but
be.
even
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
at least it's been accomplished that we did something, and we can show our kids one day, hey, you can do this too. If
Yeah.
you want
Yeah.
to, I can help you. I can help you move forward. But just know this is a part of you.
Right.
So
Right.
I
Right.
think that legacy. I mean, I think it matters.
Yeah, yeah, and just how much you talked about the importance of the journey and understanding, what that is and how much it adds to your scope of knowledge, your frame of reference, how many things going on this journey has taught you and showed you that you wouldn't see any other way is so
Right.
dope, and I attribute it, a lot to these things that we pursue. I wanted to talk a little bit about you touched on earlier talking about your process in writing, how like you said, your mom bought you that Dell computer, and so that you could start writing, and how important it is. And how integral to the whole process of cultivating your creativity it is to have the support of your parents. And I say that because I think about, any endeavor that I ever wanted to go into, whether it was the acting or rapping or music production, anything. I always had like the full support of my parents, and I appreciate them so much for that. To the point of really trying to cultivate these gifts within me. And yeah, it's so important that parents understand and see that kind of stuff, and not stifle their kids when it comes to stuff like that. Even though you want to, and it comes from a place of love. I definitely understand you don't, because this pursuit is definitely a labor of love. It's something that it can take a lot out of you, and it's chewed a lot of people up and spit them out. And some of them not better for the process and things
Yeah.
like that. So you see that, and it's a scary thing. So when you think about somebody you love as much as your child, I definitely understand them, having those fears, and even if unbeknownst to them, projecting those fears onto you, onto the child or the person. But to have parents that, in spite of all that, still go out and get you that Dell computer, yo, that's so dope, bro. Like,
Yeah.
shout out to
Yeah.
your mother, yo, that's so dope.
Yeah. Yeah. Our parents, they're definitely supportive of us. I know Miss Johnson and your family
Yeah.
definitely supportive. My mom, my family, very supportive. We
Mm-hmm.
you know, and to your point, I know sometimes our parents worry. They're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
look, you need to do this, you need to do that, right?
Right.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, like you said, they overcome those fears to help you move forward.
Right. Right.
And when you see that, you want to move forward, you want to show them something to not let them down as well, because whether we realize it or not, we're not in it alone.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
in it alone.
Yeah.
So,
Never. Yeah.
you know, I remember in Mount Horeb, I
Mm.
think my mother, because I started saying, "Oh, I'm working on a book," and then I think my parents started telling people,
Right.
"Oh,
Right.
he's
Yeah.
writing a book," So
Yeah. Yeah.
it took a while for the book to be published,
Right. 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 So.
but there's evidence that there was a book.
There was a thing, and I think, they like to have something to tell people too, because they get around with the other parents like, oh, what's your kid doing? Because I would do the same thing with, the different endeavors, and my mother's so supportive and so happy. She'd just be like, oh, he's doing this and doing that, and everybody's like, well, I ain't seen nothing, and so,
right. That's what they're thinking, right?
Right, yeah. But you have these, we lucky enough to have these little pieces of, things that are documented, to say that we actually made some moves, and like you said, man, I believe it's just, the beginning. We both got a lot more to come. I'm really interested, knowing that you're going into filmmaking, and you've been writing, of course, and doing some collaborative stuff. Like, man, I got some ideas we'll talk about, but I just,
we'll definitely make it happen. We'll definitely
yeah. We've already started.
Music ideas. We have
definitely
cool ideas. We'll make it happen. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. 100%, man.
Just like right there.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to, there's questions that I always ask everybody that comes on here, and I want to ask you. I always enjoy the answers because it's always usually, a result of introspection and things like that. The first one is, if you had an opportunity, if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and talk to, let's say, 12-year-old Robye Anderson, being through everything you've been through now, knowing everything you know, all the wisdom you've gained, is there anything you would say to him or tell him? What would that conversation be like?
Honestly, I've thought of this, and I don't know, because, okay, so 12-year-old me, I was, 12-year-old me, I was playing basketball and football, middle school and Boys and Girls Club. I was, trying to figure out things about girls and, stuff like that. But in terms of what I would tell me as a youth, I don't know if I would tell myself much, because a lot of the experiences that I've had have shaped me. And, so if I told myself, if I said, all right, focus on being this or focus on being that, what if I had done that and would have never even stepped outside of certain boxes that I'm in, What if I had said, all right, you're going to stay on the political science path and then go to law school and then become a lawyer and then, well, I probably would have never written any books. I probably would have never even tried to do anything in film, and I think that that's more where I'm supposed to be going anyway.
Right.
And I think that a lot of the experiences that I've had have shown me that.
Brought you to
so if I had told my younger self some of these things, then I might have been messing up my future a little bit. Like, dang, well, what could have happened if I had done, if I had shot one film, or what could have happened if I had written one book, or what could have happened if I had tried one song,
Right, yeah.
These are things that I probably would have been thinking my entire life.
Yeah.
So as opposed to telling myself to focus more on this or that, just, trust the process, Maybe that's what I would have told myself, like, just trust the process, believe in God, believe in yourself, and trust God's plan for your life.
Right. Yeah, that's dope. And I'm coming across more people maybe over the last month or two who have had that sentiment of, everything happened exactly how it was supposed to happen, and I don't think I would change much of anything, if anything. Maybe small notes here and there, but yeah, like you said, it's the culmination of those experiences that brought you to this point. And so, yeah, that's dope, man. The other question that I usually ask is, there are people out there looking to, first of all, find that thing that they love, and then also once they realize it may be filmmaking or it may be, you know, writing, or they may have even like not even to that point, but just have a story in their mind that they want to get out. People looking to accomplish some of the things that you have been able to accomplish. Like, what kind of advice would you give a person in that position?
Got you. Well, I think it's important to listen to yourself, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this is something that I didn't necessarily do as much earlier on in my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you feel comfortable in certain situations, maybe pay attention to why you might feel comfortable in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel comfortable in certain situations, pay attention to why you don't feel comfortable, you know?
Right.
So, just to give two examples, if you're hanging out with folks who, you know, maybe you're always kind of on edge when
Mm-hmm.
you're around them, maybe you don't need to hang out with them so you don't feel on edge. Maybe you need to create some distance.
Right, right,
Another
right.
example, we just talked about film and me going to the theater just a few nights ago during coronavirus.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. I
Well,
noticed that. You know, no, but
yeah,
good.
yeah, right. Well, you know, I for years I was always in a theater, always in a movie theater.
Me too.
You know,
Yeah.
just or I would just buy DVDs or search for. I mean, we talked about Barry Jenkins earlier in our discussion. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
bought his back in 2010, I
Mm-hmm.
think, or 2009 might have been. I found his DVD for his first feature, Medicine for Melancholy. Now it's on YouTube, but I
Okay.
bought it and you know I lost it or someone never gave it back or whatever. So I
It
went,
happens. Yeah.
yeah. So I went and bought it again. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I had to start listening to myself. And now, obviously, his film Moonlight won Best Picture, I think 2007. But, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I would start to listen to myself like, maybe you really do like film. You know, maybe
Right.
this is something that you can do. You know, you think about it a lot, Rob. Like maybe you need to start to go that way a little more. You're thinking about it now. You're at work.
Right, right, right.
Supposed to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
thinking about work. Like
Right, exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
you're drawing this cover for this book, right? When you probably should be grading papers.
Right, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Maybe you need to focus on writing more. Maybe you need to focus on film more. Maybe you need to go this other route.
Right.
That's where I'm supposed to be. So my advice, if you're trying to figure out who you are or what route to go, you need to listen to you. I think God gives us all
Mm-hmm.
intuition. I think God gives us this internal voice. You know, I think that is God talking to us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So just listen to that and trust the process, you know.
Yeah, yeah, bring it right back to trust that process. But yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment, man. I've talked about on a number of occasions that connection with that voice, you know, whether people call it intuition or God or you know, and whatever they, you know, whatever label they put on it, is something that's so prevalent in us. But a lot of people have lost that connection with it. So even to the point where, like, at certain times you'll be about to go somewhere and something in you'll be like, man, maybe I shouldn't go to
Oh
this
yeah.
place, you know, or you trying to figure out whether you should do something and something in you's like, man, you need to go do that, you know. Is these little things that we have this connection with everything, you know, that we need to sometimes be patient and listen to and get more in contact with. So I definitely, you know, that portion of what you were saying really spoke to me, and I
We
appreciate that.
were just talking about that, right? I'm,
Yeah,
I'm in this rental car,
right, right.
right? Because you know, two students in the program that I'm in at Howard,
Mm-hmm.
they had car wrecks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hear these messages like, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't be driving as much." And then I found out like a few days later that unfortunately one of my favorite former students
Mm-hmm.
passed away.
Oh man.
Yeah, he was in a car wreck. Shout out to Bobby Burwell the third,
Mm-hmm.
Robert Burwell, but we called him Bobby. One of
Okay.
my best students, one of the most respectful young men that I ever taught.
Wow.
And you he was a developing singer.
Oh, okay.
You would go on his Instagram page. He had like 13,000 folks. He had
Wow. Wow.
wonderful music videos. He was a great person, and he passed away. Like a few days after I got the messages about the students in the program, that had car wrecks. So you would think with God giving me all these messages, I would stay off the road more.
Yeah.
But that's me being hard headed, and
Yeah.
a woman runs into my car.
Wow. And
So
sometimes it's hard to put together those messages though and understand it. Then after, how they say hindsight is 2020. That's so true. Because after you be like, I should have known this. This is
yeah,
coming, But
it's all my fault because I knew better. I should have done better. I knew better. I should have done better. So God told me don't be driving as much, and I went and drove a lot, and that's what happened. But to look at it in terms of things working out for the good for God's people, it's allowed me to have more time to focus on classes and film and things like that. So it's working out.
That's good.
I'm staying home, getting things done.
Right.
It's working out.
That's dope. Yeah. So, man, before we wrap up, I just want to find out where can people get the book from? You want them getting it directly from you? Is it available?
All right. So there's a lot of ways you can get it. All right. I have to give Sankofa some more copies because they people have been buying them. People have been buying them gradually but surely. So I got to give them some more copies. But if you want to go on Amazon, it's on Amazon. If you want to hit me up on my email is AndersonNeophoria@gmail.com. So it sounds complex, but it's simple. Anderson Neophoria. The Neophoria, Neophoria.
Right.
AndersonNeophoria@gmail.com. You can hit me up there. If you want to send me an Instagram, ROBYEONE. That's my IG, Robye1.
Okay. Okay. I was looking for you on IG. Okay, I didn't know it was Robye1. All right.
Yeah, I'm on there. I follow all your stuff.
Oh, okay. Then I probably follow you back. I got to make sure I was being lazy.
I think you. I know you do with the incredible 202 one.
That's my main. Yeah, that's the main page.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm on all of that stuff. And if you all want to, you can hit me up all those ways, or just go on Amazon. Paths is on there. You go to the book section, type in Paths, the novel, and it's there as well. So
yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to get it.
Yeah, man. Check out the book, man. Like I said, it's really well put together. If you've had the HBCU experience, it feels really familiar. And if you haven't, it's a great conduit. It's a great window into that world and some of the aspects of it. But if you've had a college experience, also it's a lot of familiarity and things that you can connect and vibe with. It's a dope book. I really recommend it. Go out, check it out. Paths by my man Robye Anderson. Hey man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you rocking with me today, man. It's been a really great interview. You're an insightful dude.
I appreciate it.
Definitely.
This is about my second or third time doing one of your shows. I know you had the studio over at the
Harbor.
The Harbor. Yeah. So, yep. I always appreciate these experiences. I'm glad that you invited me. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. And we're gonna wrap soon about some stuff like my wheels are turning. I got some ideas. So I definitely want to run past you.
I think that the more experience, the better that we can all get. I think it'd be great to put more of your material out there.
Definitely.
Cause you got some fire songs, Dave.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, man.
I don't really, like I said, I haven't really rapped in a while. I still write a lot and I produce, now, but I mean, I've been doing more like the acting and writing for like I said, a friend of mine has a sketch comedy show and stuff like that. But that's just some stuff I wanted to talk to you about, because the process of writing, like I'm okay at it, but I want to get better. And so, I'm gonna shoot some of my stuff to you and see what you think of it. But yeah, we'll talk about all that, man. I want to thank you guys for rocking with us today. It's been another episode of the Neighborish Livecast. Million thanks to Joel Laguerre for coming in and being the host with us, and a million thanks to my brother Robye Anderson for coming through and kicking it with me today, man. Thank you guys for rocking with us. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves and each other. And hey, look, watch out for that corona, man. Keep your mask on, keep the hand sanitizer, wash your hands, and be safe out here, man. Love all of y'all. Yes, sir.
Sanitizer, yes, sir.
Exactly. All right, Robye. Peace.
All right, thank you.